Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Coach's Corner. So, against our better judgment, we're taking on a very painful topic today. We're calling it Telltale Signs of a Fallout. Some of you define this differently. I've heard the term fall off. Some of you just call it horrible luck. But the idea is you have a deal that you assume is solid. You've posted it. You rang a bell, everybody cheered, and you've spent your commissions already. And then something happens either before the start date, the candidate pulls out, which is the most likely thing, or in the guarantee period, the candidate falls off, which happens less often for all of us. So the question is not, is this horrible? Yeah, we know it's horrible. It's that the numbers tend to go up when recruiters are struggling. It's a turbulent market. It's an uncertain economy. So in the best of times, the number that I've heard bandied around for 3 decades is 10%. Because, humans are horrible and bad things happen to good people and things happen. And you lose 10% of your deals. So $1 million producer knows $100,000 worth of shoplifting is going to happen every year. And the really good firms, we're really proud of our 4% number here, pride themselves in the fact that your fallouts are low, which says something about your process and your closing skills. But more importantly, at least for me, I don't know about you, Mike, at Sanford Rose, but we've seen most of the According to Danny members saying it's creeping up to 15, 20%. And, now it's horrible. If you're losing 20% of your deals, not only is that super depressing, but obviously has a big effect on the bottom line. So it behooves us to take on this subject since it matters to people and it's happening every single day. And I think it's pretty human that it would happen more in a bad market because it's a lot easier to say, well, that deal is shady and sketchy, and I have a gut feeling that it's not going to hold, but I haven't put anything else up this month. So let's pull the blankets up over our eyes and just hope. So the question I thought that would be relevant is there some way to tell if a fallout is coming? Certainly no fail-safe way, but before we get into those telltale signs, do you guys have any sort of like overarching philosophy about fallouts, or do you have sort of like a mindset or approach that you could share?
I do. Because I'm never gonna make another placement again, Danny.
Right.
Something grateful.
You'll never have another fallout.
That's right. Well, I think 2 things, and then I'd like to hear what Mike has to say on this. I think attitudinally, one of them is, do you really have the right for closure? Are you entitled for that deal to actually close? Really, I mean, I think too many people, they're seeing the deal close, the candidate accepted, here's the start date, then they start calculating the fee. And that's not bad, but when they spend the fee in their head, that's bad.
Right.
Because they have a sense of ownership that isn't theirs yet.
Right.
And then secondly, I think, what's the business model that you have? I think what we have in the recruiting business is a venture capital business. Where we have 25, 30 deals in the pipeline over the course of a year, and how many of them are going to close? Not all of them. And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And then third, I think, look for reasons why they fall off, and early in the process, manage that so that you have fewer speed bumps and fewer surprises. So those are things all start.
Yeah. No, I'm buying into that. Yeah, that entitlement piece really, really hits home. I think the more senior you are, the more given you are to, this shouldn't have happened to me because I'm me. What about you, Mike? Is there an attitude or a mindset going in that you have?
Nah. So I'm just going to put the asterisk. I haven't been on a desk and run a firm for a decade, more than a decade. However, so while I do agree, Danny, that I think things are changing. I think people are a little slimier and a little sleazier than they were. The mindset around it is you can't eliminate them because you can't eliminate somebody without integrity.
Right.
So, but you can do everything to put the person in a place of integrity to accept the offer, show up and stay unless there's something catastrophic. I think this was a training you did in the 90s that was cultural in our firm. And what we did was, and I remember I taught it to your office and you're like, oh yeah, that works so well, we stopped doing it. Was when we talked to a candidate that we knew we were going to send on an interview, we would say, I want you to imagine we go through this whole process. You fall in love with them. They fall in love with you. There's a little bit of toughness in the negotiation, but you know what? You didn't get exactly what you want, but you're thrilled because the opportunity, and you resign. You go through a brutal counter offer. You're like, no, I gave my word that I'm going to show up. This is the best next step for me in my career. And you get a call or a text or an email on Sunday night, and it says, hey, Danny, I don't know how to tell you this, but we found a guy on Friday that's better for this opportunity. And we've got to do what's best for the company.
Mm-hmm.
What would your reaction be? Right. And every time we did this, Danny, just like you predicted, the venom that comes out of that candidate's mouth, and you just let them go. You let them go. I've got a signed offer letter. I'll sue them. That's illegal. They can't do that to me. I can't believe. Right. And they go on. And I go, all right. When they finally calm down, I'll say, I've never had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
But my question to you is, how would it be different if you did that to them? Right. And I go, our job through this journey is to make sure that you're locked in, that you have all your questions answered, that it is the right opportunity. I don't want you to accept an offer where there's any fear, doubt, or worry. I'll fill it. But I need to know in integrity that once you get to yes, I'll take it. There is no more no's. You can say, no, I don't want to go on the interview. I don't want to go on the next interview. You can say, no, I don't want to take the offer. All of those are fair. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. This is what I do for a living. But once you say yes, I'm going to take the offer. When you say yes, a lot of things happen and you'll set that company way back. And I know you probably don't care, just like candidates that take counteroffers don't care, just like the company wouldn't care in my theoretical situation.
Right.
That is my attitude. So the overall mindset is setting that up before you set them on the first interview when there's no pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And just having that be the mindset so that when you check in after each interview, you're looking for those unanswered questions. And to your point, I think in a software economy, we want to hope it together, and the best recruiters try to blow it up.
Right. Yeah. I think, it's funny. I get a lot of heat here because of, that technique that we labeled the visceral counteroffer close. Because my goal was to get people to feel what it's like for us and for the companies when you fall out. But a lot of people here would hear me do it and just cringe because they'd be like, oh my God, like, why are you causing trouble? But as I look back at my coaching career, not everybody, of course. I mean, there's some feckless people who just hope deals together. And there are $1 million producers who just say, I'm not going to do any of this stuff. I know there's going to be things that fall out. So, and if 10 things fall out of 100, I'll get 500 things together. And that way I'm covered that way. So I don't have to do any of this psycho jargon stuff. But for the vast majority of them, I call them catastrophizers, right? Like they assume catastrophe. And people will hear me talk about it and go, oh my God, what a miserable way to live. You're paranoid. All these candidates are going to, lie to you. And no. I don't even see it that way. I don't even think candidates necessarily, some lie, and people who are that manipulative, there's no defense against them in any walk of life. Somebody's going to look in the eye and say, I didn't do that when they did. There's no defense. But I think for the vast majority of candidates, they don't lie to recruiters. They give up on the recruiter. They don't believe the recruiter can handle the truth. The recruiter wants one thing, so they just get tired and they start feeding you. So the best recruiters I found are catastrophizers. And I believe that hypervigilance is not something that makes them anxious and depressed. In fact, it creates energy. This hypervigilance creates energy. Their mental clarity is so much better. The people that have the low fallout rates are hypervigilant, mentally clear. And the bigger thing is, I never heard a really, really good recruiter who had a low fallout rate ever say, why me? In fact, their whole approach is, why not me? Like, that could totally happen to me unless I take care of things, right? And unless I cover these things up front. there isn't this sort of victim approach to it. They're very like realistic of, I got to root this out now because it is so much better. I think this is the other thing. You've got to be willing to lose a deal, and know that that is less pain than taking a deal down that you've already celebrated and put in your numbers. At least for me, that was always a given. It's like, hey, who hasn't do that?
I think when you do it that way, Danny, you actually save deals that would have blown up. You're going to lose the ones that were going to blow up anyway.
Right.
In a less painful way, but you're going to save deals. So for example, when people take a counteroffer or they blow it up, to your point, they're not, if you haven't put them through a process, they don't think they're doing anything wrong.
Right.
Because, well, I said I accept the offer and then I decided not to. That's not a lie, but so you just, it's almost like this is what we agreed to. And then throughout the process, to your point, I was a catastrophizer.
Mm-hmm.
I was like you, I'm a catastrophizer. I hear something in your tone of voice and I'm like, Danny, what's off?
Right.
For most recruiters, when they're struggling, they either ignore it or they sell over it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're right. They oversell as soon as they hear it, and they'll go right to something that we already know. They'll say, "Oh, it's too bad you feel that way because it's such a great opportunity and they like you so much." And this, oh, okay, that you're missing the point. You're totally missing the point. Yeah. Scott.
I think two things along that. The catastrophizing, I take a page from James Stockdale, Vice Admiral James Stockdale's story in the book, what is it? Good, Great, I think, talking about who is it that didn't survive the concentration camps, the POW camps. It was the optimists, because they always felt things are going to get better. They always hoped, we'll be out of here by Christmas. We'll be out of here by Easter. And the Stockdale paradox is understanding how stark and how real and how difficult your situation is and not sugarcoating it, but then knowing you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think we have to understand that there are all these danger spots in our deal, and we have to be vigilant. Like you said, we have to be aware of where they are and know that, okay, the candidate cleared his voice when I asked him about the resignation date. What does that mean? Do I need to go well, Jerry, I sense some hesitation here. Is everything okay? Has anything changed? You need to look at those indications to tell you, you need to dig a little bit deeper. And we also have to look at what's the candidate's relationship with us. How do they see us? Do they see us as just a utilitarian tool that's going to help them to get a raise so they can stay there? Or do they really want to change? So I think, like I say, what I've always done in my trainings is teach people early on in the process. When should you talk about the counteroffer? Not the night before they're resigning, before you even submit them, or after the first meeting. Then bring it up before you even get to the offer, just a little bit, and then hit it home a week before they give the resignation meeting. Always showing them the exit ramp. Jerry, if at any time you're not interested in this, that's okay. It's not going to hurt my feelings. The only thing that you need to do is what's in your best interests. And that's it. And if that's it, staying at your company, that's okay. I need to know about that. I'm a realtor. I don't sell every house that I show, so to speak. So as long as you do what's in your best interest and you're honest with me, I'll be able to help you. And so I think that's how we need to look at it is, how do they see us? And what can we do early on to avoid that? And like you said, like both you said, which I totally agree with, be vigilant. No, there are danger spots all around us. The saddest thing in the world is to see a recruiter that's so excited about a deal closing, and you just know that did they ask him about this? Did they ask them about that? And we know that there's some risk. And so when we look at recruiting, it's a risk management business. How do we insulate ourselves from that risk? How do we mitigate that? By controlling what we do have control over and influencing what we can't control. And then, just a lot of mental health.
Right. And I do think, though, to some degree, not to say that there's not responsibility from the recruiter who doesn't want to see bad signs. And I think we've all agreed that the best ones call them on it as soon as they see it, and the worst ones just wish it away. But I do think technology plays a role in making this a bigger problem than it used to be. And I'll tell you why. When all of us started, and my new people find this like extraordinary, like they can't believe that we actually ever made $1. When I say, no, I would have a job order, and it would say, a salesperson for a supply chain company in Chicago, and I would call the companies in Chicago and say, hi, who is your salesperson that covers Chicago? And they would say, that's Scott Love. Can I speak to him, please? And now I get Scott Love on the phone. I don't know anything about him, nothing. So it made no sense for me to pitch the job. I would say, Scott, cold call, don't know you. I'm a recruiter. You know what that means. I got the impression that you're the salesperson for the Midwest territory. Is that right? Yes, it is. How long you been there? And now I've got to get his background. And it just naturally would evolve into, so what's my timing like? Am I catching you with 4 interviews last week, or does your father own the company? Like what? And nowadays, when we can already see Scott's profile, I understand the recruiter. The recruiter just goes, ooh, looky here. He's got a green opened opportunity. He's got the profile I want. So it makes no sense to waste any time with that. So the typical recruiter is like, hey, Scott, saw your profile. I'm working on opportunity. You want to hear about it? 70% will say, sure, right? Curiosity, flattering. And then you have a long conversation about your job. And then you get off the phone and you realize I have no idea, other than the fact that I came after you selling hard, why this person would be interested, right? So trainers like Tony Byrne and Peter Lefkowitz call the pain points are just not coming up on these calls. So when do they come up? When you start to smell a fallout. Well, hold on. You seem like a different person now. I thought you were really interested in this. Why would you think that? You never asked me that. You just said, am I available to interview Tuesday or Thursday? So it seems to me that LinkedIn is creating this sort of technological problem for these types of fallouts. I think it's creating some fallouts. It obviously creates a lot of placements. And then the other thing that I think is sort of gone by the wayside with that approach is I've never, ever pre-LinkedIn finished a call without, if someone said, yeah, I am interested. Yes, I'd like to pursue that. I'll talk to them. Here's my schedule. Okay. Before I let you go, it'd be malpractice if I didn't cover this. Let me tell you how I work. Companies want to see a short list of 5 excellent people. They pay my bills. I'm going to send them 5 people. So I need you to know that, because if you want the job, you got to tell me so that I can position you as well as I can. If you don't want the job, I want you to know it is no big deal. There's only one placement. I'm going to make it. And from a clinical, detached business point of view, don't take this the wrong way. I don't give a damn whether you get the job or not. And I really think that was one of the reasons why I had 4% fallouts my whole career, because they felt like they could tell me anything, because I made it really clear that I don't really kind of give a shit. Somebody's got to get the job. Might as well be you, but it's okay if it's not. I can hear these calls, because now we have this transcriptive software where I can hear all these calls. And it's clear the candidates who are falling out just don't feel like you can handle the truth, to quote Jack Nicholson. They really think they're going to break your heart. And yes, it might be weak on their part or lame, but yeah, it's easier to ghost you after I get the offer rather than to hear you cry to me that, I'm not taking your job. I think it's on us.
A lot of it is on us. And I was like you, again, I know stuff's changed. We, as a company, we were 3 to 5%, depending, like in that range.
Yeah. It was great.
So, because you can't eliminate everything.
No.
But
no.
To your point is, one, even when we had LinkedIn, even as technology evolved, when I would roam the office, you could not present the opportunity to the candidate until you understood their motive for making a change.
Yeah. Right.
If they just said, well, they're always open to a better opportunity. Okay. Well, that's the beginning. But it was, and by the way, it's a way to differentiate yourself. And I learned this from Lefkowitz in the early 90s. Hey, Dan, I have no idea what's going on in your career. I just wanted to talk to you kind of quietly, confidentially, see if we're open to hearing about something potentially stronger than your current situation. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? And they're like, yeah, I'm always open. Right. And then you go, before we go there, there's no such thing as a perfect company or a perfect opportunity. You have to pick like 1 or 2 little imperfections, what would those be? And like, just tell me about the opportunity. And we use that and this is what we teach our clients, use that as a differentiating point. What we heard from the marketplace is candidates are just sick and tired of recruiters arrogantly coming in and just blowing an opportunity at them with no understanding whatsoever of what their wants, needs, and desires are. And we've taken a different position. So if it's, you don't think it's important enough that we understand what's not working and what you'd want to work, and then we could see if this is the right opportunity. And if it's not, then we know what the right one is to call you with. So we're not just spamming you. We're not just emailing you all the time. And 90% of the candidates actually respond to that. The 10% that don't, they're tire kickers.
Yeah, right.
We're gonna go on the interview anyway. Or if they did, they were gonna go through this whole process to do exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think also what makes it tougher in this market is, more and more and more of the placements are being made with Gen Z, right? And I'm convinced. I see enough of them. I'm fortunate enough to see several hundred deals a year here, and what was not true 20 years ago is 20 years ago, if I really liked the culture and I really liked my boss and you got me an increase of 10%, I'm not moving. I might take a counter offer and threaten to move, but I'm not moving for money. And now there's no question. There are certain generational differences, and we've seen Gen Z people just say a job's a job. I work remote. I'm not really connected to this company in any way. You got me a 25% increase. I'm taking it. I don't care. And they don't have any of these emotional attachments that we've been talking about. So there are some people that will just move for, expedience, right? Whether it's working remote or whether it's money. But most of the fallouts are not that way. Most of the fallouts, I believe, we don't really understand the reason for looking, or we haven't calculated the sort of risk of a fallout. To me, the risk of a fallout is directly connected to what is their reason for looking, and how easy would it be for their company to fix that once they gave notice? And so now when you look at things like, well, they make me come in 3 days a week. Fine, you don't have to do that anymore. I don't like working for this boss. Fine, we'll transfer you. You took away this. I'll give it back to you, right? So when I look back, the people that I never had to worry about, and I wish we had more of them, but as a sort of grand generalization, I never had to worry about a fallout if somebody, when I started to do my counteroffer pitch, I would say, let's talk about counteroffer. Obviously, you could get one. They don't want to lose you. You could take one. That would be an easy choice on your part. I never lost the ones who said, Danny, no offense, I'll let you finish, but let me tell you something. I don't belong here anymore. And you hear a wistfulness in their voice, like something systemic has changed, the culture, the mindset. Maybe they aged out of their group. Something is so deeply, profoundly painful to them that they wouldn't take a counteroffer for $1 million, right? And so I think we're awfully superficial in the reason for looking, right? And it's an easy thing. Like, is the reason for looking easily fixed by a company? Like, if somebody were to say, I don't like this product line. I don't think this, if I was a salesperson and I said, this product, nobody wants to buy. Okay, well, they're not going to create new products for you because you give notice. But if you say, you took away 2 of my major accounts and I'm leaving and I'm a top salesperson, well, I'll give you those major accounts back, right? So how difficult would it be for the company to fix what is wrong with them? Because, to Mike's point, the more difficult it is for the company to fix it, the more obvious it is to the candidate that this is not real. I don't deserve this. So they're moving all kinds of pieces that I know is not right. And so that doesn't feel right. That smells. I'm out of here. But when it's easy to fix it, then the companies will just simply say, I had no idea you were unhappy. Let's talk about it. And this is why I think the other big sign of a fallout is, what was their relationship like with their boss? Was it a mentor? Was it someone they care about? Is it someone they respect? Did that person hire them? Did that person train them? Or is it this sort of absentee manager that they only have met twice and they could give a damn, right?
That's a great point, Danny.
Yeah, the reason for looking is, I just think it's the ball games for the most part.
And I've got 3 ideas, Mike. What you talked about, finding out the pain points, that goes back to learning how to sell with Socratic selling concepts, asking questions. Let them be the one that drives the deal forward.
Yep.
Like the day I had 3 counteroffers in a day. I think I told you guys that. I was crying so hard. I'm like, man, my abs are going to be so good. They're going to look so good. And what came out of that was that I realized, oh, it's not about me. It's about them. At the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do anyways. Why don't I just find out what that is and let that intrinsic motivation drive the deal forward. And then secondly, Danny, what you mentioned about what happens and what have they done in terms of talking to their boss about that issue. There's a group I had dinner with last Thursday in New York that wants to move, and I got real clear on their motivation, and I asked them, have you talked to your leadership about this? And I made clear that they have, and I made clear that there's nothing that's going to keep them there. So it's on us to really dig deep and find out what that intrinsic motivation is, and have you talked to your boss about that? That's a legit question. It's not like,
Totally.
I don't want to give them that idea. It's like, no, you want to give them that idea.
Right.
And there's some people, why don't you do this? Talk to your boss. Let's talk next Tuesday and let's see what we should do. And then finally, Danny, what you talked about on a videotape, VHS I purchased back in 1998, where you talked about, this was at a dinner, and you mentioned this, I'll never forget this. You talked about the suicide hotline. I think, did you work on a suicide hotline?
I did. Yeah.
And I remember even bringing it up. Have you thought about suicide? You're using that as a metaphor. Have you thought about taking a counteroffer? Just talk to them about that, because it's going to happen. And if people say they'll never give me a counteroffer, they don't do that here, don't believe them, because if they're really good, policies change with snap of fingers, and they'll get that.
Right.
So I think those are three things, just like what you said, Mike. Dig deep, find out the intrinsic motivation, Socratic selling, tell them, ask them, have you talked to your employer about this? Why not? And then bring up the issue as you go forward. Just so that, and I, like I said, let them know. Just be honest with me. Do what's in your best interest, but be honest with me. That's all I ask. And you can lock them down to get that agreement. It's like the agreement of expectations in the working relationship early on. So, anyways,
I agree with that.
So a lot of the things I think all three of us are in agreement on require the recruiter to do two things: extra work and become uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, if I look at the common denominator. So to your point, Danny, like I would send, I remember one time I had this candidate, he was a walk-in $50,000 bill, and he had all the right motives to make a change. He thought he had gone so far in his company. There was no hate for his company, but he needed just the next big challenge. And I'm like, he's so good. He's going to get so countered. And the culture of that company was to counter. It was Cisco Systems at the time. And I go, John Chambers will get on a plane from San Jose and fly to the East Coast to talk to you based on how good you are. I said, why don't you, both of you, take your boss to lunch. Go, look, I've been here 6 years. I've plateaued. What's your vision for me over the next 2 or 3 years? Where are we going? And if he goes, look, I don't have time for this, go back to work, sell some crap. You know what they think. Or they'll tell you something. He called me back after I actually simultaneously set him up on an interview while he was having so I don't wait for all this. I do these in parallel. And I knew it. I knew my client's like, yeah, we want to bring him back. This is the guy. This is the guy. He calls me back. He has the lunch. He goes, this is the best advice I've ever been given. He goes, I sat down with my manager, and there's this new thing that they've already had me mapped out to drive this new product on a regional level and oversee a team. This is exactly what I've been waiting to do. And when I tell candidates that, when they go in with that conversation, they're not saying they're interviewing. They're curious about their career. And I go, now at least when if they blow you off or they don't give you a good vision, whatever they tell you in the counteroffer is bullshit, because you gave them the opportunity. And that's saved deals, because candidates have done that and their managers have blown them off, made it unimportant, and all of a sudden they become incredibly unimportant on the moment of their resignation. And they'll say, look, I came to you a month ago and this wasn't important. I have to quit now to get your attention.
Right. And, I think for people that are listening to this, when we say, and I think you're right, Mike, it's be uncomfortable. So to me, there's some obvious things that come to mind when you say that. You have a choice when a candidate starts delaying things. You had a second interview scheduled for Tuesday and they go, oh, something happened, insert personal or business thing. I can't do it this week. So delays, reschedules, changes in communication methods. Guy that always picks up the phone all of a sudden is emailing you and you get his voicemail, and starting this avoidance behavior. And now all of a sudden they change their communication methods. Someone that says something like, I'm I'm 99% sure I'm going to take it. I just need the weekend. Why do you need the weekend? Well, because I want to sit down with the offer and talk to my wife. Oh, we've had 4 interviews over 2 months. You haven't talked to your wife. Like, all of these things when we sit in a podcast are so obvious, right? And everybody listening will say, oh, I would call them out on that. But in my experience, especially if you haven't made a placement in a while, you get hey, I can't do it this week. Can we push this off till Monday? Most of the time, I hear recruiters going, sure, no problem. First of all, do you know there's no problem with the company? And the really good recruiter finds the little catastrophizer and it comes out and he sucks it up and he goes, I got to find the energy right now to go, yeah, no, dude, this has been set up. This is the last interview. They have several stakeholders in on this meeting. It's all been scheduled. I don't know if they can do next week. You got to find a way to get there. And most recruiters are going to fail that test. And all I tell my recruiters is think about your own life. Like, I mean, for me, all my failed attempts at dating, like it's the best analogy I can make because, most dates are bad, but when you have a good one, it's like, oh, I got to lock this down. What are you doing Friday? And there's nothing on earth that's going to keep me from being on that date on Friday. When I was first trying to make it as a speaker, I'm sure you guys went through this too. Everybody's got to do everybody would love to do the keynote on Saturday morning, but first you got to do the dinner meeting in Detroit on Tuesday night. And when you get the call on Monday saying, hey, can you come to Detroit tomorrow night to do an hour-long meeting where as you speak, people will be dropping dishes and talking to themselves? Sure. Yeah, sure. And you're not canceling that because I had a vision of I wanted to be a well-known speaker. And you do what you got to do. I've had recruiters who literally are calling me from a cab because their water broke. And they're not calling to tell me, hey, I'm about to have a baby. They're saying, look, I'm about to have a baby. I got Sheila going out on this interview. I need you to call her. I'm going to text you her number. They don't just say, hey, all bets are off. I'm having a baby. I don't have any responsibilities now in life. I've seen CEOs, the top level people who are coming from chemotherapy to make an interview because they know this is a key hire and they're not going to reschedule it. So serious people do uncomfortable things and make things happen. And serious recruiters have first of all, the smarts to go, oh no, 99% sure you're taking it on Friday is 100% a turn down Monday. So let's suck it up. Let's get our energy together and fight this battle now because we're losing if we don't. And, a lot of recruiters will just say, who knows? Maybe I'll get it Monday. I'm going to go have a good weekend and try not to think about it. And that's not the way to do it.
I've used that because you hear that, oh, I'm either 99 or pretty sure. I just need to sit on it for the weekend. And my question is always, what are you going to know on Monday that you don't know right now? Yeah. You've been interviewing for this for a month.
Yep. For sure.
If depending, the male or female, you get proposed to, you say, well, let me sit. I know we've been dating for a while, but let me sit. I'm pretty sure I'll marry you. I'm going to sit on it for the weekend.
Yeah.
Let me
this is where you got to all of your points. You've got to give the candidate the space to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And I hear that, Danny. I'm hearing, I'm not sure.
100%.
And it's probably not 99%. You're probably 49% there.
Right.
And that's okay. It's probably not. Then I just do a very subtle takeaway, right? It's just say no and enjoy your weekend. No, I don't want to do that. Well, then I have them, instead of me selling them, which is what recruiters do. You should never be selling a candidate at this point.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to sit over the weekend and you don't, just let me tell them no now so we can move on with the backup candidate.
Yeah, right. That's right.
No, I don't want to do that.
Got 2 more in my email.
Why you want to take it then.
Right.
And then sometimes in that conversation, because some people it's a big decision and they want to sit on it. I think sometimes that is legit and is our job to not accept that.
Right. But also, Mike, and I didn't think of this until you just said that. It is absolutely legit, especially when they have another offer. So I'll tell you what I really did change over the last 5-10 years is, used to be me being tough guy. And it's clear if somebody says Thursday or Friday, I need till Monday, and it's been a long thing. It's like, no, what's really going on is you have other offers, and you want to see those other offers before you make a decision on mine. And clearly the other offers are better. Otherwise, you would take mine. So you're hoping to get the other offer. 5 years ago, even, I would say, are you buying time? Are you, jacking up my client? And I'd be very accusatory. And we've gone to a softer, again, generational thing of saying, look, it's clear to me what's going on. Let me help you buy some time. Right. Let me help you buy time. As long as you're saying to me, look, there's this other offer I want. I should know about it tomorrow. If I don't get it, I'll take yours. But if I get this, I'm going to take it. Cool. That's fine. So now we're honest with each other. You let me talk to me about the other offer. I'll help you get it. I'll try to buy some time. As long as you tell me that you would take mine if you don't get it. And by the way, we got to make sure, because it's not fair to my company to wait another week. You got to say to this company tomorrow, I need this offer tomorrow, because I got to make a decision over the weekend. If that's crystal clear with everybody, then I will go the other way and say, let me help you buy time. Let me ask my client if I can get a couple more days. But we've got to be clear on this, right? Are you seriously taking? And then, as you say, when I say that, then they go, yeah, I would do that. In fact, if they would give me a sign-on, I could say yes, right. And here comes the real reason for it. But you're going to get the real reason, isolate the real objection by saying, let me help you buy time, instead of, are you buying time? Meaning, are you lying to me? Right. And once we've done that, we've had an awful lot of great open conversations. And look, we've lost some where they got the other offer, but the nice thing is
it anyway.
Yeah, but the nice thing is, look, there's a reason why they haven't got the other offer yet, because there's other people in on the other offer and they may not get it.
So I love these conversations because they spur all these other things I've done in those situations, or we do, and we train people. Is, to your point, is we'll buy you time, because I'll say, even maybe before you get to the offer, sometimes where you sense some of that hesitancy, and they go, no, Mike, it's definitely my top 3, so it's third. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I didn't say that. Yes, you did, because if it was in your top 2, you would have said top 2. And if it was your number 1, you would have said it's number 1. And I'm not judging you, because you have to go to work there. Right.
Right.
One, is there anything our client could do to leap from 3 to 1? And then 2, to your point, is, they told me they were going to get back to me, and a lot of times they take that as an offer. And to your point, I tell them, this conversation works really well. Call up the prospective employer, Mr. Prospective Employer. I just got an offer. I really want to work for you. If you were me, what would you do? And human beings, hiring managers, my experience is, if they know you're a backup, they're going to say, look, we can't do anything that quick. You got to do what you got to do. I don't want to stand in your way.
Right. Exactly.
To reverse psychology of dating, they're not going to let you go if you're number 1. If you're the number 1, they're going to go, oh my gosh.
Right.
I got to have you talk to one more person. How much time? And then, as long as that person says, okay, they always say, okay, we're going to Right. You will know where you stand based on their tone and their response.
Yep. 100%.
And I think that goes full circle into, how do they see us? Do they see us as somebody that's just trying to make a placement, or someone that's trying to help them? Yeah. And something I've done, because 30 years in recruiting, actively working a desk, I think I've learned more in the last 18 months than I have the previous. And one of the things I've started doing with every candidate is, even if you make a move with another headhunter or on your own, call me and I'll be happy to advise you on how to resign, so that you can leave with a good reference and a good relationship. So just that goodwill, telling them, all I ask is be honest with me, because let's just agree, they will do what's in their own best interest. We can't avoid that. That's why when the whole phrase candidate, when I first heard candidate control years ago, I'm like, that's bunk. That doesn't make any sense. You can't control other people. If you think you can control people, spend time with my children. You can't, right? But you can influence them. Yeah. And you can build that trust. And it's like, every real candidate that you have, at some point, the wall should come down. Let me tell you what's really going on. Yep. And I will tell you this, when I started segmenting candidates, what is a candidate? You might think you have a candidate, but you don't. And there's 3 different variables. One of them is, do they have a valid motive to move? Mm-hmm. Number 2 is, are they transparent? And number 3 is, are they responsive? Right. If you have all 3 of those, that's a legit candidate.
Yep.
The bonus is, are they engaging? Hey, what are you guys going to do this weekend, Scott? They're engaging, kind of inviting me into a relationship with them. If you only have 2 of those, it's not a candidate. If you have 1 of those, it's not a candidate. You have to have all 3. Valid motive, they're transparent, and they're responsive. They respond to your emails. And like what you said earlier, Danny, is there a change in their communication style? You need to pay attention to the trends. How quickly does that candidate get back to you? They always respond within 24 hours. Oh, the last time it was 5 days. What's going on? That's a tell. That's an indication in our game of risk management. Hey, Jerry, I'm curious, has anything changed since we spoke last? That's a good question to ask at some point, several times throughout the whole process. And again, if you set that expectation, this is what you can expect from me: transparency and responsiveness. And that's what I need to expect from you also. Now we've got a quid pro quo. We've increased the odds of compliance because now they know we've made a deposit in that emotional bank account. Now we're asking for withdrawal. And I think that goes back to, what's the relationship? Does the candidate see us as someone that can be a helpful resource, or this guy just wants to make a placement?
100%.
And they can sense that, because our industry, as you know, has become hyper competitive since 2021. Everybody that hated doing what they were doing said, I think I'll be a recruiter. What do I need? A cell phone and a LinkedIn page. How hard can it be? And they're just sloppy, and they're getting all this other messaging from all these other recruiters that just want to make placements instead of make lasting change.
Yeah.
So I think when you, as a recruiter, the person listening or watching to this, when you shift from I just want to make placements to I'm going to create a mutual satisfaction of needs between 2 parties that is lasting. And I think learning how to tell when the deal is starting to go through danger areas, it's one of 2 things. It's either a deal complicator or it's a deal killer. It's just not meant to be. And we should have found that out earlier.
Right.
And when the deals fall apart, something you can do is a deal autopsy. Analyze your deals, find out what went wrong through an analysis, bring in the carcass, and look at that. We found solutions that will be lasting change to your protocols and how you do your deals forward. So anyways, those are just some of my...
No, I totally agree. And, to get back to go full circle, because clearly we could talk about this all day. The catastrophizer fights this battle as best he or she can. And then when they lose and the candidate goes, yeah, sorry, but I'm going to take this other job or stay here. Great. All right. So that's done. Congratulations. I wish you well. And you should sincerely wish them well. Now, you put me in an awkward position because I believed you when you said you were going to take the job last Friday. So here's what I need from you. I need 3 people with your background that I can approach today to try to salvage this mess. I cannot tell you anecdotally, I know it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but the best recruiters I've ever seen in my life are candidates who broke my heart. They will email me, text me, here, call this guy, call that guy, call this guy. And you very often will end up placing that person, because now there's no more motivated recruiter in the world than a candidate that feels like he lied to his recruiter. And that's how the catastrophizer, makes his living, for sure. Guys, I always appreciate you. Let's do this again soon. If it's not for a while, enjoy the rest of your summer.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, everyone.